Okay, we're good. Okay, I think we're good. Um, Let me just check something on YouTube to make sure it's moving and grooving. Um, Hold on. Just I'll get on my phone. Let me just see. Check my phone really quickly. Okay, switch. Okay, we're good right now. We're good. I might actually have it up on my phone to be honest. Um, cause for some reason I can't. I can never just look at it when I first start the stream. I don't know why. Let me see. It's like I can't see the freaking. I can never see it in real time. I always gotta like do some extra stuff. Yeah, like we're good. Okay. Yeah, we're good. All right. I just can't do it at the same time, I guess. But all right. Well, I got it up on my screen. But what's good, everybody? Live or watching the VOD? Trying to figure out some stuff right now. Figure out some things. All right, there we go. Now it's on my phone. Now I can see it. All right. It's been a minute. Still trying to figure out some things with, not really with streaming, but just the schedule as a whole. I wanted to do something for SmackDown. I overslept, as I put in the community post. Other days after that just did not happen how I wanted them to go, but it is what it is. So it's kind of like a review, but also at the same time, it's really just me talking about Raw because it's not it's not an episode, but it's not an episode, if that makes sense. So it is what it is. um, but yeah, Raw was in. Oh, by the way, almost forgot my manners. My manners. It's been a minute since I've done this. I'm PTP, Percy. If you want to go by that, whichever one you want to go with, it doesn't really matter. Hope everybody's been good for the time that we haven't been uploading anything. Hope everybody's been well. Enjoying some wrestling. I seen a lot of discourse about Jey Uso, freaking just about anything you can imagine. But hopefully, you guys are finding some enjoyment. I know every show hasn't been great. Like Friday hasn't. Last SmackDown wasn't great. Like it wasn't phenomenal by any means, but it wasn't the worst thing they could have put out. And Raw, which was, where am I drawing a blank now? Glasgow. They were in Scotland this week. Um, Once again, the European tour has been really, really good. The crowds have been fantastic. Tonight's show was a lot better for a couple of reasons. It was a lot better for a multitude of reasons. I feel a lot of from a storyline perspective, things kind of got a little bit interesting. Like John Cena, his promo this week had a lot more conviction. I seen someone say his tone or like his infliction was a lot better this week. It actually sounded more genuine, more he was like he wasn't as unsure as he was the first time he cut one. You got that. The Judgment Day stuff picked up a little bit more. We'll get to that in the end with Penta, Braun Breaker. They had a match for the IC title that main evented. There was a lot of things that happened. So I'm just gonna get into all of that. We got the John Cena opening segment. Similar to last week, he opens the show. Has new merch, of course. Why wouldn't he have new merch? But to kind of sum it up, a little bit of a revisionist promo from last week. but he basically claims he's gonna ruin wrestling for everyone. That he's gonna win the championship at WrestleMania and retire as the last real WWE champion. Um, I genuinely, I didn't think his promo last week was bad. To be honest, it wasn't bad last week, but this week definitely was a lot smoother. It was a lot smoother, if I had to say. Just like I said, how he sounded, the delivery of everything, and well, like I expected, really not much of an explanation as to why he did what he did. With Cena, I think I don't know if he's ever really gonna do it. Like I said, I don't know if he's ever gonna give one. But the way that he's building it, as far as just saying it's been 25 years of a one-sided toxic relationship, and he wants to ruin wrestling for every single fan, every wrestler, that in itself is a pretty good explanation to me. If that's the explanation we're getting, I'll take that. I'll take that as well. Cody Rhodes comes out, interrupts him, of course, and more or less the same thing as the last time we saw these two interact. Cody at this point kind of wants to throw hands. I think everybody expects physical interactions with them between the two of them, especially this week. I've seen a lot of people say that they wanted them to have more of physical altercations on the build up and everything. But if I'm being honest, if Cena's doing this whole opposite day thing where the whole premise of the gimmick is to just do the complete opposite. Like he's not giving people new gear, he's not giving us new music, none of the sorts, right? No new look. He's just doing the opposite of what the fans of what we want. I see why he keeps avoiding physical confrontations. He like the fans want altercations. He knows that. He's not giving it to us, which furthers the fact that I think his heel work has evolved from the first time he wanted to do it to a point where this is just traditional heel work. He's just doing the opposite, full blown, of what everybody would want him to do, and that's pretty good. But before all that, Cody basically said, well, he dared him to take the title from him right now. He laid it on the floor. Then after Cena walks out, he basically said the same way you walked in is the same way you're leaving WrestleMania, empty-handed. The feud could be better. Like as far as like the promos and stuff, I feel like the promos could be a lot more interactive. I feel like for the second week in a row, you get Cena cutting a promo to the crowd. Like vehemently, his problem is with the crowd. Hasn't fully addressed Cody as much as people probably would have liked, or as much as I would have liked at this point. He's only addressed the crowd, himself, and the championship, which, depending on how you look at it, could be seen as a good thing. Like he's laser focused and he did what he did, and this is his motives moving forward. Or it could just be a maybe there's like the week before or the second week before or the week before that before Mania starts to really heat up. Maybe that's when we get like a Rock interaction or something like that where he finally kind of changes gears towards Cody and the championship as well as the fans. But I just feel like that's really the only gripe that I have with what they have going on. It's just Cena is very much in a one-sided lens with it being the fans and the championship. Is it a bad reason for why is it a bad talking point every single week? Not really, because it's as valid. It's valid for many reasons. It's very, very valid. But if that's what his reasoning is, oh, and he brought up Ric Flair, by the way, which kind of got a little pop because a lot of people don't like Ric Flair these days. But other than that, I'm kind of just looking for more. Not even from an altercation standpoint, but just more talking whenever Cody gets out there, because it's for the second week in a row. Cena talks to the crowd, lights the crowd up. Cody does his spiel. Cody really doesn't want to talk, and then Cena doesn't respond. Which, like I said, classic heel work in a way. Talk to only the people you care about or that you feel the need to talk to, and then once the guy comes out and tries to, bait you into something, you just walk away. So, Cena's doing his job. If this is what I'm saying, Cena's doing his job. That's really probably the consensus that I could take away from it. But overall, pretty solid opener. But a lot better from Cena. A lot better from Cena from last week. Then after that, I think kind of set up the. Oh, it was Jey Uso and his mystery opponent versus A Town Down Under. Actually, nothing. I could just scroll down because the results are right here, but I think there's like there's like talking points for these. So because I didn't have a thumbnail this week, so we're just gonna have to bear with the screen. Or at least I don't have it right now. I'll have it later in post. But as you can see, the Usos, his mystery partner was Jimmy. I didn't really. I thought a little bit about who his mystery partner could have been, but obviously I didn't think much of it. To be fair, I've seen people saying Joe Hendry because they were in Scotland, but that would have been kind of a stretch. Um, I thought they were gonna do like a strange bedfellows type thing with Gunther, but that didn't happen either. And I'm kind of glad they didn't do that. Kind of glad. Um, Ended up being a situation where the Usos reunited in Glasgow to face Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. The match wasn't bad. Glad Theory got in more offense than he did last week, for sure. They looked good. The Theory and Waller always kind of look good in tag team matches. They looked more like a tag team synergy wise than the Usos, which is kind of interesting to me. Not because the Usos don't have synergy, but because you would think that they would probably like as far as like they didn't really start doing tag moves like synergy wise until the end of the match, like the alley-oops, the it was another move they did. I don't know what it was called. Oh, it was like an assisted spear. Like Jimmy threw, I think he threw Theory, or I think he threw Waller. I think he threw Waller over his head, and Jey Uso speared him on the way down. And of course, the 1D, which ended the match. Not really much tag work. Obviously, I mean, they're both singles guys now, so they probably wanted to balance out the two and not make it too much like how it used to be. But the Usos win the match, of course. And Gunther comes out with the post match attack. A lot of people are kind of getting tired of it. I don't really know what else Gunther can really do at this point to kind of build the story. As far as like I'm saying, it's going to be weeks of hell. I don't know how much more hell he can cause for Jay at least, other than to just like constantly jump him every week. I don't think there's really much else he could add to this. So you expect a jump. You expect him to get jumped at this point. At least me. I expect him to get jumped at the end of every match. So he threw Jimmy aside initially to start off the whole thing. Him and Jay start going at it, and they hinted at it eventually later on in the night about Jey Uso kind of messing up his dives that he's been doing for 15 years. But this week, he went for a spear, or he was setting up for the spear out the corner, and they say he slipped, but I think he just kind of like tripped on his shoe, or like his Air Force just scuffed the mat or something. But he falls. Gunther jumps on him, and Gunther starts beating him down. Jimmy Uso runs him off with a chair, and that's the end of the segment. It was interesting to further. I guess they are trying to add more depth to the Jay storyline by having him have like they're kind of disguising it as mental errors, which isn't a bad cover up. Because if he's like missing dives because he's thinking about the championship match, he had Gunther in his line of sight. Maybe it's like anxiety or something. He's tripping over the mat, slipping up. When the big time comes, it'll make the match that much better when all these things go off without a hitch. Which could be them pivoting. Could have been the plan all along. If it's their plan all along, that's some smart stuff. Because now you got them talking about Jay in some type of capacity with him having 2 weeks of him messing up. And now you kind of just add more layers to the Gunther unclimbable wall theory that they want to push out for almost every single title or opponent he's had within the last 3 to 4 years. It makes it more compelling. Not really the biggest fan of this build either, to a certain extent. But I mean, how about the Grayson and Waller? Waller and Theory are on TV, getting involved in the feud. It gives them something to do. Jimmy and Jay have been doing pretty solid this year, at least from the beginning part. Jimmy's been doing his thing with Drew, will happen as part in the Drew Damian Priest storyline. Obviously, Jey Uso is his brother. He has a plan in that as well. It's pretty interesting what the it's starting to get a little bit better. They're adding more layers to it. The match itself was solid, of course, but the more storytelling they do at the end involving just Jey Uso being mentally defeated, I'm looking forward to what they do with it because now they're kind of selling the doubt now. Like at first, I didn't think about it at first, or I didn't see it in the beginning, but now they're kind of selling the doubt more in the ring, out like not just in promos, backstage, or anything like that. They're selling it full circle. Uh, Little mini Raquel and Liv Morgan segment. They were prepping for their match. Well, Raquel's title match later on. Yeah, later on in the night. Dominic comes up and they talk about last week how the whole thing with Finn didn't go the way they planned. Same thing, typical things you would think they would discuss. And once again, they brought up the idea of Penta joining the Judgment Day. Liv saying, why don't you just go ask him? Da 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 da. And your usual stuff, typical stuff, more or less. Saying Raquel's gonna win the championship. It's interesting in most cases how we didn't see Finn until the end of the show. Whether that was intentional, like for foreshadowing purposes, or like Finn was just brainstorming in the back and they wanted to hide him for that specific reason. But a lot of the time, you see Raquel, Liv, Dom, and Carlito just alone in the clubhouse for the majority of the time, unless Finn's actually in there trying to talk about anything other than gold or being screwed over. So more or less foreshadowing for what happened later on in the night before the Penta and Breaker match. So we'll get to that in a second. I wasn't sure. Like there's certain parts where I didn't know if I missed anything because I tried to write down as many notes as I possibly could, but I'm trying to keep up with as much as I can mentally. There was something from the El Grande Americano backstory, which was something to say the least. It was definitely something. Uh, Basically just talking about I guess the not the logistics, but the breakdown of whatever like the origin story is for the luchador and the history of El Grande Americano. I realized they had a patent for it, and I didn't think it was for Gable. Apparently, it is. Well, not apparently it is, but it is, of course. And it was a pretty good vignette. It was pretty solid. It made the story a little bit more funnier to kind of just be like, oh well, this guy was big back in the day, but now then he got banished away for whatever reason. He was shunned. And now he's back in the spotlight. It was kind of funny to see it that way. After that, it was a segment afterwards because you seen the LWO backstage before Lyra went to the ring, but you get the complete visual afterwards. They obviously think it's Gable. Mysterio thinks it's Gable. He denied it. Says he's sick and can't compete. So then, basically setting up Dragon Lee versus El Grande Americano in his debut match later on in the night. I like what they're doing with this. Even Gable pretending to be sick was pretty funny at that. I hope this. Well, essentially, I'm thinking it's going to lead to a Mania match. I can only assume it would lead to a Mania match involving the OWO and American Made or El Grande Americano kind of gets that one-on-one match with Ray. Those are the I could think of as far as potential options. But it's a pretty funny story. It kind of reminds me because somebody brought this up I think in a TikTok comment section. It's kind of like the SVR 2011 Road to WrestleMania with Rey Mysterio, where Jack Swagger eventually is like Toto Americano. And I think he even tried to play off that like it wasn't him under the mask, and eventually it was revealed to be him. When somebody brought that up, it kind of made me think like, yeah, they're kind of just fleshing out that storyline just with more layers and with Chad Gable. So pretty funny to note that I've seen it that way because that that story was actually not that bad in that game. Shout out to SVR 11, 2011. After that, we get Lyra Valkyria versus Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I thought Raquel was going to win. Wishful thinking, very much wishful thinking. I had her winning, but the match wasn't bad. Raquel definitely works better with people that are smaller, but I mean, what big wrestler doesn't work with wrestlers that are kind of smaller than them? She played the power game really, really well, like how she's mostly been doing since she's been heel, pretty much. The match with Bailey wasn't bad either. From I think might have been a week prior or 2 weeks prior, might have been a week prior, but really, really good. Lyra, of course, always is solid in the ring. The Scotland crowd actually gave a little bit of reaction to her theme this week. Kind of reminded me of gave me the NXT vibes when they used to chant the woo for the pauses in her theme song. That was always really, really good. Good in a good way for them to be interactive with Lyra as well. But yeah, the match was solid. Lyra wins with the roll up, kind of protecting Raquel a little bit, not beating her clean, still not being able to hit the nightfall on Raquel. Kind of protected the finisher as well by not having Raquel have to kick out of it to sell off the monster thing. But after that, Morgan and Raquel jumped her. Bailey came out to make the save. Not sure if they're kind of hinting at maybe Lyra becoming a double champion, or at least maybe the women's tag team titles has a multi women tag match as well. Maybe we'll get Liv and Raquel versus Lyra and Bailey, and then if they ever show up on TV, because I've been seeing people say this as well, maybe the Wyatt Six with like Bliss and Cross actually like make their presence known if they're doing that as a tag team. At this point, I'm kind of doubting it, but there's still I think at least 2 weeks left till Mania. No, not 2 weeks left, but actually, I don't know how many weeks they got left, but still a fair ways away. And they got SmackDown, they got Raw next week, another SmackDown. They got some time. They got some time to figure that out. We got the Usos. Jay Uso was sitting backstage on the stairs. Jimmy kind of seemed like he was going against Jay when he first sat down by just saying, "Oh, you fucked up last week. You slipping and stuff. Like if you doing this, you not winning at Mania." And Jay's like, I know. He said he was 3-0 against Gunther. He meant to flip it. 0-3. He hasn't beaten Gunther at all. They mentioned it on commentary. I think Pat said that's how far Gunther's in his head. He's flipping the numbers around. he's flip he's flipping the score around. But yep, Jimmy tried to fire him up saying they need that right hand man Jey Uso, the main event Jey Uso, the man that won the Rumble. Trying to get Jay psyched up. It was good. I feel like it did what it had to do. Jimmy getting involved in the storyline definitely was probably needed, just from for promo depth and even match depth at this point, because I think next week, not think it's confirmed. Jimmy and Gunther have a match, and when I tell you Jimmy Uso slapped the taste out of Gunther's mouth, that slap was loud as hell. I don't know if you can literally see Gunther's face being red. He turned to the camera. That match might hit next week. That match might hit, and it adds, like I said, it adds more depth, more layer to the feud. So, and Gunther smiling about it was pretty scary too. I think he might just kill Jimmy in that ring next week. Jimmy might just die. Jimmy might just die in that ring next week. After that, Adam Pearce came out to discuss the status of the Raw Women's Championship match at Mania, saying that Rhea Ripley signed the contract, but she is not involved. Basically, they all come out with their own differences. Io's like, I don't care. Put them all in the match. I'll fight them all. Belair kind of gave off more heel vibes in this promo just by coming out. Well, not really heel vibes, I would say. Just more definitive. She was very defensive about Rhea not even being added, even though it was only Io's idea and not Pierce's. But she was like, I fought in the chamber, I earned this opportunity. She hasn't earned it. And even they brought up that I guess they were trying to get Ripley to pin her rematch clause for the past few weeks now, and she just hasn't been talking about it. That was a good little wrinkle to where Rhea's kind of like throwing a fit for nothing when she could have already had a rematch already if she had referred to it. I guess is what they kind of were going with. She could have been had a rematch, whatever. Um, Ripley comes out, says she doesn't care about Mania. She just wants the rematch, which leads to them saying, well, at least to Pierce announcing Io and Ripley have a match next week that will be for the women's championship, and the winner of that match will face Bianca at Mania. I'm very much confused at this point as to what on earth the build for this match has been. In some cases, the whole core of it, which basically is like kind of like EO being a third wheel, even though they gave her the championship, it didn't make it any easing by them saying that they're gonna have a match next week. Because there's only two ways this could possibly go. Either this is a way for Ripley to get her title back, so people kind of get the match that they expected in the first place, or with Bianca being the special guest referee, which was announced later on after um, she kind of she asked Pierce what was her who's her opponent, which I guess I don't know why they I don't know if that was meant to be the line or if that made any sense, but I guess. But with that her being the special guest referee now, maybe it's like a two-way count out or whatever. We have no consensus winner, and then we get the triple threat. I don't know. I'm guessing they're probably kind of stringing it along to where people think it's not going to be that, and then it ends up being that anyway. I just don't like the way they're doing EO. That's the only thing about Sky's booking that I'm not really cooking with. Like Rhea Ripley, they're doing fine. Belair, they're teasing certain things, but not fully. It's still kind of shielded as like competitive fire or competitive vigor, if you will. But Sky just kind of she's kind of just like not floating, but she's kind of until they start actually like having a physical altercation, they kind of just like shrug off EO like, oh well, it don't really matter. She has the belt, but she doesn't really matter. But they ended up brawling, and it was a very good brawl. They all kind of ping ponged around the ring, all kind of had their moments, and Bianca ended up standing tall this week after she KO'd Sky over the top rope onto on top of Ripley. So I believe the last, yeah, as of now, Io stood tall 1 week, kinda with the after she slapped both of them. The next week, Rhea Ripley stood tall after she powerbombed them both onto a table, and now Belair has stood tall over both of them this week. Everyone so far has had they've even had their week to kind of be the center of attention or center of the like the one-upsmanship battle. It's so it should be interesting. I feel like we're still getting that type of triple threat match, and if not, we probably just gonna get Ripley and Belair, which no one's gonna be mad at. If they were gonna do that from the jump, it's kind of just it would have been random to give EO the belt in the middle of that, but I don't think they're gonna leave EO out at this point. EO's been involved in too much in this build up for it to just be okay. EO drops it next week and then we get Ripley instead. I don't think it's gonna be that simple. So at least I hope. At least I hope they're adding a lot of layers to it to kind of detour people, but I think it is what it is. People kind of know where it's going. What we got after that? Oh, Dominic Mysterio backstage with Penta. Goes up to him and says, hey, you should join Judgment Day. You could probably win the title tonight. Very short and sweet. I don't think anybody thought Penta was going to actually join. I don't think there's probably an underlying reason as to maybe why he could, if they were to make him heel later on, and if him and the Judgment Day are even still on the same brand, it'll be better than him joining the LWO. That's really the main thing that I can think of. It would get him away from it would get him away from the LWO, and plus heel Penta is pretty darn entertaining. Face Penta is good. Obviously, it's solid, but heel Penta, and if it's with the Judgment Day, I I'm I kind of like the idea of it. I like the idea of it. It's not. It didn't happen, of course, obviously, but for now, it hasn't happened. Could be something potential that they look at. The New Day had a segment where I guess they demanded a title match, and Pierce kind of snapped on him and was like, "Oh well, so like once you remember who you are as a tag team, maybe you'll get a title match." It was very random. It kind of bombarded me. I was like in and out at this point of the show, or at least for that segment specifically. I didn't know what they were talking about, but New Day are kind of in limbo right now after the LWO stuff kind of finished, which they won the match by cheating. They hadn't shown. I don't think they were there last week, and now they kind of just won a title match. Now that I think about it, the War Raiders aren't having. I'm confused. You kind of forget that Raw has titles, tag titles, which kind of sucks because the War Raiders are good. They're not bad by any means. They had good matches with the Creeds. Pretty sure they could have a good match with the New Day if they were given the opportunity to. It's just you kind of just forget they're there. They're not as involved with the show as much as SmackDown has, DIY in the past, and now the Street Profits. They're not as much involved with the show as they are on SmackDown. Could be the time difference, like the time slot that they have to put people on the show, and they have so many singles feuds to push and escalate that there's not really much room for them on the card right now. But I think the show will get longer eventually as time goes on. So if it's at least maybe even a 2 hour show, like you get them on the card in some capacity, or you get more room to do something with them. After that, it was Dragon Lee versus El Grande Americano. The match was fire. Nothing short of what I expected. Obviously, El Grande Americano moving real Gable like they move forward with that in the story as far as Gable does moonsaults like that. Gable does a lot of suplexes. Michael was hinting at it on commentary for the majority of the match. Fans chanted "Ole." uh, it's pretty good. Like the way Chad worked with the mask too. Like it seems like something he's wanted to do for a while, or something that they probably brought up to him, and he was like, "Oh well, I could probably make it work." And he's cooking. He's cooking right now. It's looking really good. He unmasked Dragon Lee, which in typical heel fashion, a nice little touch to it. He unmasked him. I'm not gonna lie, Dragon Lee got a crispy fade or a crispy haircut. I'm not gonna lie, that haircut crazy. He had that what was that it's like a 2K haircut where like if you extend the height of it, it's like a pompadour or something with the sides cut off. He got a crispy cut. Nice little fade. But Dragon Lee got his mask ripped off. Grande Americano slaps on the ankle lock, gets the W. Either, like I said, pretty much I'm thinking this is what we're gonna get at Mania involving the two. I don't know if it'll be Gable as Grande Americano or if it'll just be Gable in a match, and they somehow pivot to where Grande Americano still in some way ends up on the card. Well, the gimmick itself somehow ends up on the card. But so far, he's won the first match, and it wasn't a bad match. It was good. So I definitely think that Gable is making the most. Gable can make the most out of anything he's given at this point. I think we already kind of know this. It's pretty much where we're pretty much what we're knowing him for. I mean, even the Shorty G gimmick, he made the most of that. The American Alpha with the towel, he was cooking with that. American Alpha got those guys cooking. He's doing and I feel like he's done some good work with the Creeds at least. Not really as much with Ivy yet, at least, but he's done a lot with the Creeds for American Made. So Chad's a solid. Chad's solid. Chad's doing some solid work right now. Solid character work. We had the CM Punk segment afterwards, which it was pretty ominous. He kind of left a lot of questions from a fan's perspective or for people to interpret. Because he said that as of now, he's like, well, obviously, he's like, and apparently I have a match now. You see right there on the graphic that the Triple Threat match was promoted again. I think it was confirmed Friday, but they showed it on Raw, and they were brawling, so obviously Punk wouldn't have acknowledged it until Monday, in kayfabe purposes. But he said he has a match at Mania, but it's not the one that he wants, or is it? And that right there kind of makes me hint that the favor is going to come into play on Friday. When they are in London, I would assume. Well, obviously the contract signings in London on SmackDown this week. So I'm assuming the favor potentially will come into play where like Aldis and Heyman are around and they can actually confirm that they've discussed this, and it could be like some sort of like shocking announcement like, oh, now the winner of this match gets inserted into the match. Don't know how they would fix this with Cena and Cody because, like I said, they haven't really picked up enough momentum. But maybe if you add the intrigue of a third man being entered into your match, maybe that would add more layers to it. That's what I'm thinking. Hopefully. Um, but yeah, he goes on to talk. Like I said, he goes on to talk about the contract signing in London, and hopefully it leads to what he actually wants, which is a Mania main event for the championship. And he also brought up that neither of them have defeated him without the other one helping. And I tried to brainstorm. The last time I seen Punk and Reigns, I think in a match was it like 2014? I have no idea exactly. I know it was during the period when I think Punk was feuding with the Shield, and he was like kind of like trying to drive a wedge between them about which one was better. And he ended up fighting all three of them like on separate occasions. But I think Roman did end up winning due to interference at that time, which wasn't really needed because they were building him differently. But he won due to interference. And then obviously last week, Seth Rollins was dragged out of the cage by Reigns, so unintentional assistance for that as well. And the line at the end was solid, where he said he brought them into this business and he can't wait to be the one to take them out of it. Great callback to obviously the Shield being brought in as henchmen for CM Punk, full circle type of thing. People might have gotten their full on investment because this is what Punk didn't do on Friday, or maybe didn't have the time to do last Friday. But more or less, he said what needed to be said as far as to get across that the goal has always been and always will be about the championship. Who he fights, as long as it leads to him winning a championship or having the chance to compete for one, that's all he cares about. They're making it personal, he's making it business, which is pretty darn clean. I can honestly say that's a pretty darn clean way to look at it. Well, not even clean, but like just the usual way he's looking at everything since he's came back. He's fully been invested in championship matches. Also, Eddie brought up he works with children line again, which is very much funny. Very, very much always kind of like a cheap pop thing where he's like, and I work with children, basically saying that he's working with crybabies. It's kind of, kind of weird. Not kind of weird, but kind of funny in a way. They advertised Logan Paul, his Instagram post, calling out AJ Styles for London next week. I want to be invested in that just because AJ's in it. I really do. I don't really have a vested interest in the Logan Paul story as much as I probably should. But I mean, it is what it is. Logan Paul's not a bad wrestler. I feel like him and AJ, if they do end up fighting at Mania, it will be good. I feel like AJ, being the vet that he is, they're gonna have a good match. Logan Paul isn't that bad. I say isn't that bad. Logan Paul isn't a slouch in the ring. He can still do a couple not a couple of crazy things, but he can do a lot of good things in the ring. He can do a lot. So if it eventually kind of foreshadows and leads to the match being confirmed the next week in London, I'd be interested to see where it is on the card. Like, is it night one? Is it night two? But I think that's probably where it's going, at least in the current moment. We get Braun Breaker before he goes out for his match, basically saying if like they ask him about Penta joining the Judgment Day and him having people out there at ringside for their match. Short and sweet, said he doesn't care or him if whether or not he joins or not is his business, but his focus is pertaining to the championship. And then we get Breaker versus Penta for the Intercontinental Championship. The match Nothing short of what I expected. They Braun Breaker is definitely, if we're talking like Slammy Awards, if they still even do that, I think, oh, they might, I don't know. Superstar of the Year, you can low-key throw Braun Breaker's name in there. I don't think Braun Breaker has had a bad match since he's been called up. And then since his IC title run, the second run at least, he's been doing solid work. And of course, Penta being not there for his he just kind of really like rose on the scene, and them already having to compete for the IC title just shows the potential that they see in him as a singles competitor. Knowing that initially it was going to be the Lucha Bros being a team, after the whole holdup with Phoenix's contract, Penta was able to flourish and show them that he could be a main guy in a single situation. Obviously, we both know they can, but the plan was to bring them in as a team, and now you have the potential to have two major, like globally known masked luchadors on Raw and SmackDown. Because Phoenix is, as people know, he's on SmackDown, been getting vignettes aired for him and everything. So if all that goes well for Phoenix on SmackDown, him and Penta, even though Penta's a little bit older, I believe, kind of like 30, what's like 35. So I know he's like in his like late 30s, I think. But even in WWE, that's prime because shoot, AJ Styles is still up there, and he's up there too in age. But Penta being already in that title picture shows that he's garnered some notoriety backstage, and he's putting in that work. He's putting people on notice. But like I said, match was solid. Good back and forth action between the two. Didn't really seem like either one had an advantage over the other, which just goes to show like kind of how evenly matched it is. Because obviously Braun is a freak of nature, but Penta is a vet. He's been around the block, a former world champion in other companies, so he wasn't just gonna get completely worked over. The match started to get to like I guess like the closing, not the closing. Yeah, I think it was like the closing moments. Judgment Day had came out at ringside prior to the commercial break, but basically the match ends because Dominic slides in the ring, chop blocking Braun Breaker, gets the DQ to occur. After that, then Finn shows up at the end once the kind of like brawl starts to happen. Came out with a chair, kind of made it seem like he was gonna hit Dom with it after I believe he hit Braun initially. I don't think he hit Penta, but he hit Braun with the chair initially, and then he ended up giving Mysterio the chair to then put in some pain. And to get the answer to the prior thing that we talked about earlier with the segment and everything, Penta wasn't joining, so I think he had a Van. Was it a Van Dam? No, not a Van Daminator. He basically just super kicked the chair back into Dom's face. Finn lays out both Penta and Breaker, and the Judgment Day stands tall as Raw goes off the air. It is kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. I've seen people talk about. Well, obviously, I posted a kind of visual of what I assume they're gonna do with the IC title. A multi-man match could definitely happen. How they would set it up hasn't really been. It's kind of been foreshadowed tonight. Well, I said tonight because it's Danger at 7. But Penta obviously will be involved because he just competed for it. Braun being the champion. Finn Balor, who just had a prior title match opportunity. You have Sheamus, who more so this is his life's mission at this point to be, excuse me, to be Grand Slam champion. You got Ludwig Kaiser, who his goal is just to hold gold by like this is the year of Kaiser, European elegance. The only spot that's unsure if they were to do 5 or 6, you'd probably throw Dominic in there. I would assume. I don't know who that 6th guy would be. I have no idea who that would be. But what should we see? Braun, Sheamus, Penta, Kaiser, Balor. Actually, no, that's 6. That's 6. I'm sorry, miscounted. That would be 6. Um, Penta, Kaiser, Balor, Sheamus. Yeah, that would be 6. Yeah, it could be an interesting way to book the IC title. If it does end up being, it would kind of seem weird if at this point it ends with it being like the cap off to Sheamus's story instead of maybe a new guy winning the title, like a Penta or a Dominic. It would be interesting to see what they do with it being if they make it a multi-man match. It would be sure to be good. I don't think it'll be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a good way to close the show. Obviously, last week I think last week it ended with a face-off between, well, yeah, between Penta and Breaker to foreshadow they were facing off next week. Well, this week. Now you get the Judgment Day kind of standing tall with Finn at the center, which almost hints that Finn ain't done with the title. Finn is not done with the chase by any means. So you kind of get a little bit of a teaser for what they could do with Braun and the IC title. I feel like Braun is kind of bigger than the belt at this point, and if stuff goes the way that people see it to go, with Jey Uso being the new champion, if they're bringing Jey Uso into the fold, well, he's always been in the fold, but like fully immersing him. If he's fully immersed, you got Gunther, Jay, Braun. Who else is it? I mean, you still got Seth. Yeah, you got Seth in there as well. At any moment, you could make Seth repivot after this whole Punk Roman thing is over, or maybe he just uses Roman for the next few months, which is also definitely a possibility. You got, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's up with Dragunov, unless he's kind of just like recuperating an injury of sorts. But you could have Dragunov if he's still listed as a Raw superstar. I haven't checked that in a while, but they have a chance to remake or restructure the World Championship division, World Title picture at all, or in some way or some form. They could if I was about to have Braun drop it to like Penta or like Dom, and then have one of them guys maybe lose to Sheamus, ideally, or maybe Sheamus just never gets the Grand Slam. I hope. I mean, I kind of hope that's not it because he's been going after that belt for the past 3 years now. Well, 2 going on 3 years. It's been a doozy for Sheamus. I love Sheamus, but it's been a doozy for Sheamus. So that just about that just about wraps up Raw in short, or in a short and sweet way. Overall, I'd have to say the show wasn't bad. I feel like match wise, that was definitely the highlight of the night to me. The matches were really good this week. Tag team match, at least tag team match kind of started it off. Match wasn't bad. Lyra and Raquel was pretty darn good. I think a match of the night would probably have to be Grande Americano and Dragon Lee. That match was very much my favorite. And then the Braun Breaker match, for story purposes, it did what it had to do. Before the DQ ended it was on pace to be a banger and possibly match of the night, depending on what the ending was for it. If I had to grade the show, I'll probably say an A, like a A minus type deal. The show, outside of maybe if you wanted to really nitpick, or if I really had to like be specific over something that could have been different, probably the Cena Cody promo, as far as them two interacting more. Aside from Cena talks, the fans listen, Cody comes out, nothing between the two. I get why they're doing it, but if that's one thing to nitpick at, that might have been it. Maybe even uh that might be it. That might just be it. Because that they got across what they need to get across. The card's starting to fill out, of course, for the most part, or at least I feel Friday and Monday we kind of start to flesh out the card more, with more people kind of getting their direction set and planned and laid out for us. Like the U.S. title on SmackDown, I think. Yeah, they have a match this week as well. LA Knight and Strowman. Didn't get to, like I said, we didn't get to. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that SmackDown for from last week. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I don't know. It'll something will probably happen for it. Something will probably happen. But yeah, overall, A- for the show. If I had to grade it, wasn't. I feel like matches are saving it for me because overall, you can still kind of see like a couple of hiccups or just minor things that I'm just being like really picky about that I could think of, but it ain't really necessary to bring up right now. Overall, they did what they had to do with the amount of time that with the amount of time, the amount of resources that they had. Friday will probably have a little bit more depth for the triple threat match at most. Or I think Cena might be there Friday too. I might have to check again. I'm not sure if he is, but there might be a couple people there on Friday to make it worthwhile or to build up further more storylines and more matches to be confirmed on the card. Overall, they did what they had to do. They did pretty solid this week in my opinion. And that's it's gonna be it for. I guess it's like a review of sorts. Like I said, I don't know what is gonna happen with as far as us not getting out a SmackDown episode. We're gonna figure something out. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. I'm not gonna confirm anything. I tried confirming it in a community post. Did not go how I thought, but we're gonna get out something for that as well. We're gonna get out something just to make sure we're all caught up to speed before Friday in England. Uh, as always, you can follow. Watch it. Never mind. Subscribe to the channel. I waited really long to get to this point, but subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel. We're at 32, almost close to 50. If you like the content, hit the subscribe button. Like this video too, by the way. It gets us pushed into the algorithm. You can find the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast, where you get your podcasting needs. And you can follow me on social media at PTP underscore 99 on TikTok. I would say Twitter, but I don't really use my Twitter anymore. I have Twitter, same as TikTok, but I don't really use it that much. If you want to follow, you go ahead, feel free. And you can find G at Gino's Game on TikTok. The last video was from him, by the way. If you haven't heard or seen about that either, it was a what if video. If you want to watch that as well, that will be also on the channel as well. And hope you guys have a good rest of your Monday. Not about the good rest of your week, but probably see you guys again by the end of the week, multiple times probably by the end of the week. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Monday evening, and we will see you all on the next one. Peace.